Hello gamers of WoT Team, and welcome back to another WoT Team tier list. This patch 2.0.19. Today we'll be going over the changes that the developers have made and how this will possibly impact the meta. So to start with, the release of the new champion, GJH, looks like he's going to be an extremely strong control mage, but I haven't placed him in the tier list yet because I want to see how he plays and how he interacts with the rest of the meta champions before I put him into a tier. So you're going to have to wait until next patch to see where GJH falls in the tier list. So I'm going to kick off the tier list by saying that unfortunately for all you Salim mains out there, the name of the meta is still very much burst. High burst assassins are taking over the meta like Adlam and Ian Woods. So that's why you'll see them at the top of the tier list. With items like Joe's Boots of Flawless Agility and Ari's Spell Spear being buffed in the patch, it's no surprise that the assassins, who were already very strong, are even more powerful than they were in the previous patch. That conveniently brings us into our first character of the tier list, Adlam, who retains sole possession of S tier. He's too powerful for any other characters in the game to deal with effectively, with his all-round solid stats and exceedingly high special attack and speed. I recommend building Joe's Boots of Flawless Agility into Ari's Spell Spear into Catapult of Toast. This build is extremely burst heavy, but still provides an escape with the Catapult of Toast item. Honestly, there's no real way to counter Adlam at the moment. I recommend banning him in your ranked games. Coming in at second and potentially making their way into S tier this patch is Ian Woods. Ian Woods received buffs to both his special attack and attack, which is good because of his variety of ranges in his spells, but he received nerfs to his defense stat. Now these buffs complement his already extremely high agility, and he's potentially a very good assassin character. Now because of Ian Woods' nerfs to defense this patch, I would actually recommend skipping the full Ari's Spell Spear item and just taking the Spell Spear component, Spear, followed by Cowden's Unholy Spell Shield. This should allow you to deal some decent burst damage in the early game whilst still maintaining a defensive option in the Spell Shield. So taking it straight into A tier, we've got Baby Kami G, who is basically better than Kami G in every single way. He's got extremely high speed, which makes him a dangerous assassin, but his attacks are ranged, which is contrary to most of the meta assassins like Adlam and Ian Woods. But I've figured out a way to make Kami G work despite this key difference. You need to build Severed Shotgun of Samir for the insane AoE burst that it provides and follow it up with some defensive items like Catapult of Toast or Cowden's Unholy Spell Shield. Overall though, Baby Kami G, very solid pick. I'd recommend looking to pick him up this patch as it's looking like he's going to be in the meta for a long time. Now, despite the meta being extremely burst centric this patch, we've actually got an outlier in the Enchanter hero Chabs, who's got an insanely high special defense which he can cast on allies, and is currently the only counter present in the meta to the high burst characters. Build path is standard defensive items to protect teammates, Soy Boy Team Shield followed by Soy Lamb's Revenge to give teammates a damage buff. If you main burst assassins, I highly recommend banning Chavalao as he can be a huge cuck to burst assassin players. Potentially wriggling his way up from B tier into A tier this patch is the character Sam, who's an all-round insane late game scaling hyper carry, actually the best scaler in the game to be honest. With his unique passive be good at every video game, he has infinite scaling, his stats scale forever. However, he has the clear weakness of his self-esteem, so if the devs can sort that out then he'll definitely be the best character in the game, but until then there's not a lot he can do against the high burst champions which are currently ruling the meta. Now, B tier is actually looking extremely similar as to how it did last patch. We've got Joe at the top of B tier, who's a very solid tank character, plays well into the assassins but can still get kind of cucked if he doesn't have a proper carry to play around. We've got Paper Lamb, who's a solid DPS mage. If you want to play Paper Lamb, I recommend building Prince's Ward of Straight Boy Transformation. It's a really powerful one item spike for control mages, but again, with all the high DPS assassins in the meta, you're going to struggle to be relevant until 3 or 4 items, even with that one item power spike. Coming in at the bottom of B tier, we've got Woshua, who despite the prevalence of burst assassins is still a really strong support that you can play around a hyper carry with if you can reach the late game point where your shields can just completely negate the assassin's burst damage, but again, it's a huge risk to take scaling champions in this current meta. And so, unfortunately, because of these burst buffs, we're actually seeing one of the community favorite hyper carries, Salim, actually drop down into C tier and potentially D tier if his win rate doesn't start picking up. Really, Salim just has no answer with no built-in mobility to really escape the burst damage champions. It's honestly not looking good for Salim in this meta right now, and the devs need to sort him out if they want to see him in professional play anytime soon. C tier also looking like it did last patch. Top of C tier we've got Kami G, who's basically baby Kami G but with no mobility. I don't really know what the devs were thinking when they removed Kami G's unique ability Infinite Tank, which basically makes it the strongest tank character in the game. They removed that for some reason, so Kami G is just a weak baby Kami G. No mobility, unlike baby Kami G, but still high damage. Unfortunately, due to his lack of mobility, he really struggles to get close to the enemy and deal his damage that he's got lots of. Moving through C tier, we've got Silly Lamb or Long Hair Lamb, one of the community favourite characters, but really just not a very strong champion in the late game. He's got a really good early game, but he scales so weakly that even the assassins can take him down in the late game. So, risky champion to pick. You're on a clock basically if you're picking Silly Lamb in this meta. A risk, but if you're good at Silly Lamb, if your mechanics are clean, then I recommend taking him. You can make him work, especially in high reload where people can follow up on your plays more. So, if you've ever seen the popular anime Konosuba and you're familiar with the character Megumin, well, that's basically the same as Veri. He's an insane DPS mage, but he has insanely long cooldowns. If you can land the perfect wombo combo with a heavy CC champion like Joe or Kami G, you might be able to deal some serious damage, but again, it's a risk, and there's not always the chance that that wombo is going to present itself to you. And at the bottom of C tier, we've got Mir. Mir uh, has the unique passive Dad Joke, which is really good when it works the first time. It pisses them off so much that they actually can't focus on the game and they get this weird screen shaking effect. But after the first use of the Dad Joke passive, the new change that they've made is that it actually gives a unique status condition to the enemies called Rage. This increases the enemy's attack stats, which obviously is not going to pair up well in a burst heavy meta like this one. Imagine giving an Adlam character Rage, he'll literally one-shot your entire team. This coupled with Mir's incredibly low accuracy make him a very weak character in the current meta with no real strong points. He's kind of a fringe pick, a cheese champion if you will. So now we're in D tier and we're getting to the real dregs of the meta here. So the first character in D tier is Calzone, and the reason that he's at the top of D tier is because there is a way that you can make him work. I've found a way. You need to basically build on hit, but he still deals no damage before he hits his 6-item spike. Once he hits his 6-item spike, he's basically the strongest character in the game, but you're going to be bodied so hard in the lane phase by all the assassins that really it's going to be an hour before you've got your items, so he's really unplayable in this current meta. So moving down C tier, we've got Pineapple Brat. Apparently the devs have decided to spec all her stat points into ass, and apparently that doesn't lead to a very good character, so she's at the bottom of C tier for a very good reason. And coming down again, we've got Younger Mir. Now, Younger Mir is a really awful character. He does everything Samir does, minus the unique Dad Joke passive. Basically a completely useless character, no real reason for him to be in the game, waiting for him to get his visual and gameplay rework. We can expect that in the next couple of patches, I honestly feel like. And now we reach the worst character in the game, the Trap. This character is absolutely useful, only has one ability, Attract. This spell only works on characters whose attack damage exceeds a certain threshold. Now, the only character that can actually exceed this threshold is a 6-item Adlam, the character currently ruling the meta at the top of S tier. So, really, Trap is a completely useless character until the very late game, where he serves as a hard counter to Adlam. There's no real reason to pick this champion, it kind of feels like a gimmick to me. Honestly, if someone in your ranked lobby locks in Trap, I recommend you just dodge the game and take the loss of LP. It's honestly going to be less painful than the game you're about to endure. So that about does it for this tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. There are a couple of characters that I was really not sure on in this tier list as to how far down or up to put them, such as Ian Woods and Salim. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see how this meta plays out. We'll check their win rates on the next patch and produce an updated version. I'd also like to add that I'm incredibly excited for the new skin being released this patch, Mexican Sam, or as the community are calling him, Sambrero. Looks like a very fun skin with lots of good particle effects, so be sure to pick this one up if you can. Not sponsored. Lastly, with this incredibly exciting meta, I would like to announce that the WoT Team Championship Series will be starting in the next 2 weeks, airing 6 PM to 12 PM Saturdays and 6 PM to 12 PM on Sundays. There's going to be some exciting games with this burst heavy meta, so be sure to tune in on twitch.tv/WoTteam.